Welcome to The Explainer. I am so thrilled to have you here today. If you're a focused learner looking to level up, you are in the exact right place. Today, we're taking a deep dive into Scott H. Young's book, Ultra Learning, specifically unpacking Chapter 7, which is all about Principle 4, the drill. And trust me, it's going to completely rethink how you practice. We are about to decode exactly how the most ambitious people in the world absolutely shatter their learning plateaus by attacking their weakest points head-on.
Okay, let's dive into this. How exactly did Benjamin Franklin master the art of writing? I mean, we often look at historical giants like Franklin and just kind of assume they were born with natural genius, right? We think the words simply flowed effortlessly from his quill, but that subverts the reality entirely. What I found so fascinating is that Franklin wasn't just talented, he was incredibly tactical. He ruthlessly deconstructed the skill of writing. Instead of just writing endless essays from start to finish hoping to get better, he broke the craft apart to practice its specific elements, like ordering arguments or expanding his vocabulary in complete isolation.
And honestly, this quote by composer Philip Johnston really unlocked this concept for me. Take care of the bars and the piece will take care of itself. It's so brilliant because it perfectly captures the absolute secret to mastering any hard skill. Instead of passively practicing the whole thing over and over, playing the whole song, writing the whole essay, running the whole routine, you have to break it apart. You isolate the hardest bars, you master them, and the overall piece naturally falls into place. All right, here's our roadmap for the explainer today. We're going to start with bottlenecks and cognitive load, then move right into the direct then drill approach, break down 5 tactics for drilling, and finish up with the mindful drilling mindset.
Starting with Section 1, Bottlenecks and Cognitive Load, the Science of the Struggle.
We've all heard the phrase, practice makes perfect. But general, repetitive practice, it's often a myth that leads straight to a frustrating learning plateau. To understand why we suddenly just stop improving, we have to look at the science of the struggle. It really comes down to understanding what chemists call the rate-determining step. Basically, this is a single component of a complex skill that completely governs your overall performance. Think of it exactly like a bottleneck in a chemistry experiment. Say you're learning a new language. Your bottleneck might be your vocabulary. It literally doesn't matter how perfect your grammar is. If you don't know enough words, your overall fluency is blocked. But if you isolate and fix this one weak point, the entire skill improves rapidly.
But right, there's another hidden trap here, and that's cognitive load. This refers to the highly limited mental resources we have when we're trying to perform a complex task. It's literally like juggling. If you're trying to write a compelling article, you are juggling research, storytelling, vocabulary, and grammar all at the exact same time. If you don't simplify the skill, your brain just maxes out. You drop the balls. Improvement completely stops because you simply do not have the mental bandwidth to get better at everything simultaneously.
Moving right along to Section 2, the direct then drill approach, a cycle for mastery. So, if we need to practice a whole skill in its real context to actually make it useful, but our brains max out if we don't break it down, what's the move? Well, this brings up a really fascinating tension. On one side, we have direct practice, doing the whole skill in its real environment, playing the actual sport, speaking the language with a native speaker, writing the actual software code. It ensures you're learning in the right context. But on the other side, we have the drill. This is pulling the skill apart to isolate and attack a specific weak component. Direct practice prevents you from learning useless things in a vacuum, for sure, but drilling is the engine that actually creates rapid mastery.
So how do we actually combine them? It's a super simple 3-step loop. Step 1, try direct practice. Get your hands dirty in the real environment. Step 2, analyze that practice to isolate and drill the weakness. Find that bottleneck and aggressively attack it. And then step 3, which is absolutely vital, reintegrate into direct practice. You have to take that newly isolated skill and put it back into the complex environment. This builds the connective tissue, and more importantly, it tests if your drill was actually effective. If your overall performance didn't improve, well, you drilled the wrong bottleneck.
Let's move to Section 3 and see how this builds. 5 tactics for drilling, your practical toolkit. Identifying your weakness is one thing, but designing a drill to actually fix it can be surprisingly tough. So let's go through a fast-paced sequence of 5 actionable ways to drill your weakest points right now. Tactic number 1 is time slicing. I love how simple this is. You just isolate a specific difficult slice in time of a much longer sequence. Think of a basketball player practicing hundreds of penalty shots, or a musician obsessively repeating just 2 measures of a massive symphony. You take a tiny crucial fraction of the total performance and repeat it relentlessly until it is absolutely perfect.
Tactic number 2 targets our mental bandwidth, cognitive components. Here you drill only one mental aspect while completely ignoring all the others. For example, if you're learning Mandarin Chinese, you might do drills where you only focus on pronouncing the correct tones of the words, completely ignoring what the words actually mean or how to form a proper sentence. It magically removes all other distractions so you can focus 100% of your cognitive burden on a single task.
Next up is tactic number 3, the copycat. This is absolutely brilliant for creative skills. You simply copy the parts of the skill you don't want to drill so you can focus exclusively on your target. Benjamin Franklin used this constantly. He would take past essays, copy other writers' arguments, and then literally just rewrite them. By not having to invent original thoughts from scratch, he could focus entirely on drilling his sentence structure and logic. It saves massive amounts of time and mental energy.
Tactic number 4 is the magnifying glass method. Sometimes you can't easily isolate a part of a project, so instead, you artificially inflate the time you spend on it. You literally spend 10 times more time on your weakest subskill than you normally would. So if you're a writer whose bottleneck is weak research, you force yourself to spend 10 times longer on the research phase of your very next article. It's a fantastic way to force new habits by just putting a giant magnifying glass over your weakness.
And tactic number 5 is prerequisite chaining. Okay, this one is slightly frustrating, but it is wildly efficient. You intentionally start a task that is way too hard for you. You try to build the software or paint the picture. And when you inevitably fail, and you will fail, you go back just one step to learn the exact foundational theory needed to pass that specific roadblock. You only learn the basics exactly when a failure demands it, which guarantees you never waste time learning theory you aren't actually gonna use.
Finally, Section 4, the mindful drilling mindset, embracing the uncomfortable. Now we have to acknowledge a real hard truth about all 5 of these tactics. Doing these drills takes immense guts. It is not fun. It is highly, highly uncomfortable to put a magnifying glass over the things you are literally the worst at. But as Scott H. Young argues in Chapter 7 of Ultralearning, this is the defining mindset. True ultralearners, they don't just sit around doing what's easy or what's fun. They actively seek out the friction. They embrace the mindful drilling mindset. They wear the discomfort of attacking their weakest point as a total badge of honor, knowing that the frustration they feel in the drill is the exact feeling of their limitations expanding.
Which leaves us with one final, kind of uncomfortable question. What are you avoiding practicing right now? What is the bottleneck in your career, your hobby, or your personal growth that you keep hiding from with generalized practice? Stop passively practicing. Take that complex skill, break it apart like a puzzle, find the bottleneck, and attack your weakest point today. Thank you so much for joining me on The Explainer, and keep learning.